We're actually going to be starting our water cooling project, getting our PC hardline tubes. I recommend to do the longest thing first that you're actually not going to interact with, that being the radiator and your Rad Clean from Primo Chill if you ordered this. They do clean these out at the factory before they ship them out to you, but it's still good practice to make sure you get everything out. You wouldn't want to actually put this whole thing together, especially with hardline tubing, only to find that inside your block you'll see little pieces of debris going through the fin stack because the radiator wasn't fully flushed. Your Rad Clean should come with a miniature little funnel like this that's threaded, so you can actually thread it into your radiator, and it should come with two little stop plugs that have gaskets on the end. Now what you're going to want to do is just start taking these out. These are the original ones that come in your radiator. Once you take those out, you're going to get your funnel that it came with if you have this, and you're going to thread it into one side, and I'm slowly going to pour it in the funnel, and I'm going to keep going until eventually I see the water coming up like so. So now we know for sure it's full. Let's put our cap on. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna swash it around a little bit. We're gonna just make sure it gets all up in there. And we're gonna let this radiator sit somewhere safe away from Aiden and let that stuff soak and do its job. So depending on what you're gonna be cooling, this is really gonna set the stage of all the parts you're going to need. So we're just gonna be doing our CPU for now. And once we find the block for our GPU, we will add that to our loop. Once you have your block, you're gonna pick your reservoir. Reservoirs and pumps do come in one unit like this one you see here. You could get your reservoir and pump totally separate. So this is pretty cool that they're one, so you're not using tubing to connect them together. Plus this one has a tube that runs down into the tank, so when water's returning from, say, your radiator, it's not splashing. It's being fed directly to the bottom of the reservoir, so you don't get a waterfall sound effect. And also this also stops aeration. Our kit here, this will have a thing that holds your tubes in place. You could put it on the side of a table, so that way you could cut the tubes. Also, you have another piece here that after you're done heating up your tube, you could get your 90, your 45s, whatever angles you're trying to get. And then you have a what is it called? Debower, debrazer, something like that. Anywho, after you cut the your tubing, it's gonna have rough edges afterwards. It's not gonna be nice and smooth because you're gonna be cutting it with a little hacksaw. And what that's gonna do is gonna make sure the tube isn't sharp and messed up when you go to put it inside of your fitting. If you put a tube in there that has messed up edges and they're sharp, you'll end up cutting the rubbers on your gaskets and cause a leak. So make sure not to do that. Make sure all the components in your computer work. Namely, everything that's not the water cooling components. Your motherboard, your CPU, your RAM, your GPU, your power supply. Plug those things in using your motherboard box as an anti-static work surface. If you boot up, you post right into your BIOS, you're doing great. If you're upgrading your CPU, make sure to test it before you put your build completely together. I can't put enough emphasis on making sure your PC components work before you build your PC. Make sure the components you're gonna put in your case will fit in your case. Everything you buy will have sizes on it. So this way you know when you go to put it in your case, it'll fit. Be prepared. This could take anything from a full day to 2 days to a week. Literally, it could take that long. Anything could happen. You could be building and all of a sudden you used up all the tubing you had and now there's not enough tubing to finish your build. So make sure you either have a laptop or another PC if that's how you make a living. So if you make a living by editing, playing games, or streaming or something, have something else you could use before you get into this. What we're gonna do now to have this actually fully ready, because I don't even have it completely ready, was make sure you take everything off of your case that comes off. That means side panels, back panel, the front comes off, take that off, the top comes off, take that off, filters, take all that stuff off. Give yourself other ways of getting into your case. Before we move forward with the rest of the water cooling part of this build, let's talk a little bit about the components I'll be using in my computer. And please remember that, as usual, if you look down in the description, you will find...
You want free chicken nuggets?
McDonald's is not sponsoring this video, by the way. Can I have my Five Nights at Freddy's bear back?
No.
There goes my Five Nights at Freddy doll. Okay, now that that's done, whatever that was, let's talk a little bit about the parts that we have here. Again, down in the description, we're safe. You will find links for all this stuff that I'm using today, down to the tools, even some of the tools that are sitting here that I haven't showed you yet. AMD Ryzen 5800X, 8-core, 16-thread processor. For now, I'll be using a Seasonic 650, I believe it's gold rated. We'll be using the Power Color Red Devil 5700 XT. This is my original graphics card. This is the one I've had for a while. We're using the 011 Dynamic, the Bauer Collaboration Mini. First, our OS is going to be going on a Samsung 970 EVO Plus NVMe M.2 SSD. It's 1 terabyte, so this is going to have our OS on it. And this is another M.2, but this is an inland premium solid state drive, 1 terabyte also. This will be occupying the bottom PCIe slot. We're running 2 NVMe's. And of course, I always recommend to get yourself a Seagate Barracuda hard drive. The games you don't play as much, you could put them on here. You could just literally just flood this thing with all types of data and not even worry about it. There's no reason not to buy one of these. The Lean Lee Unifans 120s, they do not come with a controller. You have to purchase the combo pack. You're going to get 3 120 Unifans here, but it's also going to come with a controller. You need a controller so you can control the RGB on here. The singles will not come with a controller. They will literally come with this, and that's all. Our RAM. Trident Z Royals. These are the silver ones, by the way. They're 2 16 gig sticks, so 32 gigs. DDR4 3200, cast latency 16, 18, 18, 38. So they're not the fastest, but out of the box, if you set XMP on these, those will be the speeds you will be getting if you just put on your XMP or DOCP, depending on what platform you're on. 2 of the tools I did not show you. It's all in the name, hook blade. Sorry it's so dirty, but like I've told you guys before, I do roofing and asphalt, and I use these to cut the membrane, the roof roll, the paper, I guess you would call it, but it's really called membrane. The hook blade can literally just cut, just go in underneath your zip tie, just be careful still, and just pull, and it'll cut every time. So again, links down below for the hook blades. We're going to be using our iFixit Pro Toolkit. This is going to have everything you need to do this job, and also a heat gun for actually bending the tubes. Our PC's put together, our motherboard's in there, things are connected. It's what to do now. This is the time you want to take to actually disassemble and add your block on. Follow the instructions. It shouldn't be too hard to do. It's a good thing to do now and get it out of the way, because it could take some time to do, to make sure you put the thermal pads on correctly. If you're not using the Corsair X series blocks, the thermal pads probably will not be where you need them. Make sure you follow the instructions down to the T when you're placing your block. But again, if you're using the X series, like the Hydro set that we're using now, all that will be applied, even the thermal paste. So you know I'm gonna have to do that. You're gonna wanna get everything in that's not the water cooling. So basically your CPU, your graphics card. I say do some wiring now while you have a chance, especially your front panel. Whatever that would be hard for you to get to once you get your tubing in. If you're gonna be using your graphics card like this, and it's a heavy graphics card, kind of like this one right here, you may wanna look into getting a GPU sag bracket. These are pretty cheap. You can get them from like $3 up to like $15, $20 with RGB if you're into that. There's a lot of free ways of doing this too. So yeah, I got one of these because there's only a couple bucks at Micro Center. I'm gonna actually install my graphics card now, and I'm gonna install this sag bracket, and then we'll be right back and we'll start putting in our other parts. Our Corsair block comes with the Intel bracketry already on here, so if you're on AM4, you need to change it out. This one is the AM4 one. I'm just gonna demonstrate how this comes off. And when you're ready to put your new one on, and that's it. Again, this one is the AM4 mount, but it comes with the Intel mount already on it. I'm gonna put this in and then I'm gonna route the cable to the rear. So I'm on my second day because I went on till around 5 a.m. I started this at about 7 o'clock p.m. yesterday, but I had to break everything down because my wife had to cook dinner. So make sure you have a work environment that you can actually work in. Make sure whatever you're doing, because you're gonna be taking things down apart pretty far, so make sure you don't lose any of the bolts or the screws. And if you have to take a picture of certain areas that seem more complex, like a lot of different size screws. So one thing I do is as I take something apart, I actually put the nuts and screws back inside of the original box or the original bags. I write on them with a magic marker, or I have a box where I separate things and I know where they go. I have a few magnetic trays, and I don't know if I ever showed you this, but if you put screws in a certain area, you could take a dry erase marker, put a circle around them and write on the edge of the lip, like RB for rear back or IO or something that you'll recognize. And then you can write down on a notepad like the little acronyms so you remember where they go. So where we left off last night or early this morning was installing our CPU block and our GPU if you had put a block on your GPU. Now I tell everybody, do not tighten down any screws like really tight, unlike your motherboard, things like that, that's fine. Your CPU block, that's fine. But like your radiator, the reservoir, things like that, don't really tighten them. Just get them like just till they stop. Just go until it stops. This way, when you go to remove them, because you're gonna be test fitting a lot. You're gonna be taking things in and out. So if it takes 4 screws, try to do it in 2. Just until we're ready to actually bolt it all in, and that's where it's gonna stay for the end. Since we're only using the 1-240, it's pretty obvious where it's going to go. It's gonna go right here. Get everything put in and look at it like, oh, wait, nope, those are gonna get in the way. Think about it like this. Take 2 inches, if not more, further away from here is where the gap is going to be that you wanna have so you can actually get to your fittings. Really hope that made sense to you. I do apologize if it didn't. Let's get our fans installed onto our radiator. So this is where push-pull or pull-pull, push-push comes in. And if you have a really thick rad, and they could get almost double thick this, as this one is, you're gonna wanna do a push-push or a pull-pull. That's where you would have fans on opposing sides actually sandwiching the radiator in between 2 fans. Remember, you wanna make sure the fans are facing the same direction, pushing air through the same way. Because if I went like this fan would be taking in air this way, this fan would be taking air in this way, and they would be counterintuitive. They'd be working against each other. But if I put my fans like this, where one side you see the ugly side and the pretty side over on this side, I know that it's doing a push-pull config or a push-push, whatever you want to call it. This would be something you'd look into if you're doing more of a thicker radiator sides. As you can see, there are 3 different sizes of screws that come in the pack. You're going to have a long screw right here. You're gonna have one that's just a little bit smaller, and then you're gonna have one that's teeny tiny. There's a reason why they give us 3 different sizes with our radiator. Let's say you're only going to be going from your fan into your radiator. Now, you wouldn't want to use this extra long one because it's gonna go through here, and it's gonna have that much extra length. The medium one doesn't. So if you put this one in, high chance you'll go right through the heatsink of your radiator. Older radiators, this was actually, underneath there was a tube that actually held the water, and you could literally make a hole right through the tube and you'd have water everywhere. You would wanna use, if you're only doing your fan to radiator, would be the medium one, like so, because this one, as you could tell, sticks up a lot higher. You wouldn't want to use that. The only time you would use the longer screw is if, say, you were going to go through your case into the fan, into the radiator, and you were going to do a sandwich type thing. So you would have the case right here, a really thin piece of metal, because some cases actually have a radiator support bracket that's thin. So you could connect all this to that bracket and then slide that into your case, and it kind of helps with the hassle of putting all this together. So you would have an additional real thin sheet of metal on top of here, so that way this would have enough thread to go through that sheet metal, through the fan, into the radiator. The little screw is from case to radiator. Medium screw is for fan to radiator. Long screw is case to fan to radiator. So we're gonna take this and we're gonna loosen these caps. And these do not need to be the fittings you're gonna permanently put in your radiator, but this is a way to see how your fans interact with your fittings. So let's take one of these are one of your basic compression fittings that's gonna connect to your tubing and to your radiator. I'm sorry about that. One of these, the regular compression ones. So as we can see, this one, the L right here would not work because it would hit right into our shroud of our fan unless you have an adapter, like say this guy right here. We'll just put this in for show. And now this would work. And that way we can see what's our clearance on our radiator. So as I see here, it's lower than the shroud, but it's not gonna be in the way once I screw it down. So pay attention to all this. Let's get this guy mounted into our case. By this point, you've figured where you want your radiator, your fans, your reservoir pump. You've got an idea of how your loop's gonna go. I hope you bought more 90s and things like that adapters, just in case things don't work out the way or you feel intimidated. So what I'm gonna do now is show you how I usually plan a loop. Even though I do a lot of soft tubing, I still use 90s and things like that to make them, tighter, to make them look better. You don't want them looking like the AIO where they're stretched all over the place. So even when you do soft tubing, you could use 90s and 45s to make it look, cleaner. Let me show you how I do it. I got my drain here, as you can see right here. And I've already test fitted the glass on both sides to make sure this piece and this piece both do not get in the way. Once I put this together, I just take a look. All right, here's my radiator, my inlet outlet for my radiator, my outlet for my reservoir and pump. Here's my CPU inlet outlet. What I want to do now is just take a good look where everything's coming from. All right, I know this is my outlet. This is where it's gonna go out from. So my graphics card's here, it's in the way. So putting a 90 there is stupid. Come out a little further. I'm gonna come out to about here, figure how to go up. Then I could come out from my CPU and figure, all right, if I come off my CPU, I could go this way into my radiator. And then my radiator's a straight shot back into the in, where the tube inside of this casing is actually gonna be way below your water line. That way you're not getting any aeration, getting bubbles in the water because it's splashing down. So that's gonna be our in. We're gonna use this other port for a fill port. And since we have a nice wide opening from here, from here, from here, no problems there. So one of the things I try to figure out is how I'm going to drain my loop. And that's my answer right there. A ball valve right here. And I have it going out this way of the case. So if there's any issues, it goes in that direction. So my out from my pump and reservoir is going to come out into this T fitting or Y adapter. So it doesn't have any other holes, just this one coming straight and then the one going here. And I'm going to end up coming straight across my graphics card. And then I need to go up. Let's say I'm gonna plan to do that bend. Fine, but let's say that bend doesn't work out. Let's say I can't seem to get it right. I put a 90 here to tell me, all right, Joe, this is where you're gonna put a 90 to go straight up from here. So I'll put my 90 right there. So I know I have a 90 to tell me I'm going straight up. And then I could do another 90 by bending the tube here. You wanna at least get one bend in there. So coming out of the CPU, since the inlet over there to the radiator is way over there and it's high up, I don't want to come straight out and then across, then up. It's gonna look tacky over there. So I put myself two 90 adapters just to bring it up a little bit, and I want to bring it away from my ram. And we're going to come straight back towards the glass of the case, and then we're going to make another turn that way. So I put my other 90 here to demonstrate that I'm going that way. And once I get right about here with the piping, I need to go up just a little bit. So just in case, I put myself another 90 down here to represent that. But I'll try to bend it. Then from the radiator back into the refill over here, it's just a straight shot to here. Might need a little bit of a bend, but I was thinking that I'll have this perfectly lined up and then cut a small baby piece going from the bottom of the 90 into the tank, just to make sure it's nice and leveled. But that's pretty much how I do it. I just start putting my 90s and things like that where I plan to use them, to give me an idea while I'm looking. All right, so this is where I'm gonna put a 90. Those are backups. If I don't like the way my bends come out, I could just start using those 90s and they'll be perfect every time because, well, they're 90s. So what I'm gonna do now is clear this off, and then I'm gonna show you how to use this tool set that hopefully you purchased. If not, you probably have something similar, but I'm gonna show you how to use each of the tools in that picture. Give me a second to clean everything up and we'll do that. But real fast, you know you are water cooling when there's literally parts everywhere. Boxes and bags. There's more stuff behind me, and then I got this lighting rig set up and the tripod for the camera. So yeah, you know you're getting down when you've got all this stuff all over the place. Okay, so let me clear this up and let's start figuring out how to use that thing. Be right back.